What's up guys, James here, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Still got no internet access at home, so I'm not able to make videos quite as often as I'd like to, but I should still be able to have at least one video out a week. Anyway, today's video is going to be responding to some comments by Creationists and ID supporters. Now, for some reason, I've received more comments from Creationists in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last year put together. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot more than mere coincidence at play here. I know that I've recently added to the list of atheistic YouTubers, and I know that this list is now making its way around Facebook, so perhaps that has a little something to do with it. Whatever the reason though, I'm getting a ton of extra views, so please keep it up. In fact, I'm going to leave links down to some of my other videos about evolution below, so feel free to comment on those as well. If you actually want a civilised discussion, by all means comment, ask questions, give me video responses, send me PMs, all of that, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. After all, that's one of the reasons I started this channel in the first place, to share ideas and to educate. But, as I've always said, I'll give you the same amount of respect that you show me. So, if you want respect, you're going to have to give me some respect as well. I can be polite and civilised, or I can be a complete arsehole. It all depends on what your attitude is towards me. Now, the reason I'm doing this in video form rather than just responding to the comments is because it's quite difficult to express complicated ideas in 500 characters or less. And secondly, the whole reason I started on YouTube in the first place is because I was fed up with commenting on forums, and I wanted to reach a wider audience. So due to the sheer volume of comments I've been receiving, this will be a multi-part series, and I'm going to kick off part 1 with my response to hammcl01's comments. Okay, so hammcl's been commenting quite extensively on my 6 questions for Creationists. We've had quite a back and forward on there. There's a few more points I need to raise, and there's a few things I need to clarify because I don't feel I really explained them well enough in the comments section. And there are a few quite strong issues I have with some of the things you said. So first of all, you said do the research yourself. I do. I always look at what the other side has to say. Now first off, this comes extremely close to an ad hominem attack. You're basically saying that I haven't looked at both sides of the argument. Which is completely false. The fact is that I'm here asking creationist questions, and I have been doing so for the last 3 years. The thing is that when you actually examine their claims, there's not a single creationist claim which actually holds any weight which I've come across yet. I've probably heard every argument for creationism that you have. And I don't think I've even heard an original argument for at least a couple of months. But I have been looking into them quite extensively. It's just they don't seem to hold any weight when they're critically examined. And you say that you look at both sides of the argument, but from my experience that doesn't seem to be the case. For example, in the comments section you were talking about how junk DNA actually does serve lots of purpose, and then after I explained a few things, you completely ignored me. I mentioned that scientists very, very rarely use the term junk DNA, if at all, and we now refer to non-coding DNA. Now, there's many different types of non-coding DNA. But that's I'm not going to go into that now because that would be a whole video series in and of itself. However, there is non-coding DNA which does serve lots of function. There's also non-coding DNA which serves virtually none or no function whatsoever. I presented a scientific paper to you where which mentioned that 2.3 million base pairs of DNA had been removed from the mouse genome, and the mouse continued to develop absolutely normally with no detectable effects whatsoever. But then after I brought that up, you then completely ignored it, and you went on to say about how all of this supposed junk DNA does have loads of purpose, and it's all completely vital to the development of an organism. And this piece of research, that paper took me 5 seconds to find on Google. 5 seconds, so you haven't attempted to look at both sides. It's easy enough to find. If you look at both sides of the argument, you try to falsify. What what you've learned. You've got that straight from a creationist website, and you haven't critically examined it whatsoever. So no, I think you're the one who isn't looking at both sides of the argument. Right, next comment then. You seem to have convinced yourself that this is just a biological issue. I've only watched this one video, but it seems as if you're someone who does not believe in God or a higher power. What the 51% of scientists are rejecting is some form of ambiogenesis, which an atheist would need to prove their theory. Ambiogenesis would fall into the realm of chemistry. Stellar evolution, which an atheist would also need, would fall into astronomy. Right, so no. First off, what the 51% of scientists believe in either a god or a higher power. That has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not they accept evolution. I know plenty of Christians who believe in God and still accept evolution. Right, ambiogenesis, I haven't heard many scientists talk about. I'm guessing that that's a creationist construction like stellar evolution. I vaguely remember hearing something about 6 different types of evolution. But no, when scientists talk about evolution, they are just talking about the biological aspect. Yes, as an atheist, I would have to believe that the stars formed via natural means, and that the first cell formed via natural means. But that has nothing to do with. But that has absolutely nothing to do with evolution. I may be wrong. Maybe a god put the first cell on Earth. Maybe aliens put the first cell on Earth. Maybe it came from a comet, or maybe it formed here on Earth. But that is completely irrelevant to evolution. We have phylogeny, we have the fossil record, and we have radiometric dating, and they all correlate perfectly to show that all modern life on Earth shares a common ancestor. So next comment then, it's not a separate issue if you're using evolution in the form of atheistic evolution, because atheistic evolution has no way of getting to evolution, no way for life to start. Ambiogenesis really becomes impossible if you look at the entropy of chemical reactions that have to happen. And the only reason why people would look to outer space would be because they cannot find evidence here on Earth. Right, okay, let's go over abiogenesis quickly. There are competing theories on abiogenesis. None of them have been proven yet, and perhaps we never will perhaps we never will know for sure. But the competing theories are extremely scientific. We've replicated early Earth conditions in the lab, and that spontaneously formed amino acids. We've also found amino acids on comets, and we have other explanations for how the first nucleotides formed. So we know that it's definitely possible, and we have competing theories which are extremely watertight. They certainly seem possible. There's no way to, they're definitely not impossible, but we just don't know for sure which one is true yet. So you say that evolution's not true because we don't know how it started. That argument is completely flawed. We know the mechanisms behind evolution. Natural selection plus random mutation. will lead to an increase in fitness in organisms. In fact, I'm running a little simulation here at the moment. That's been running since I started making this video, and the fitness of the organisms has increased considerably, just in the last half hour or so. Natural selection plus random mutation will lead to an increase in fitness and will lead to adaptation. We know that the mutations happen. We can explain through genetics how this happens. We've seen substitutions. We've seen additions, subtractions, gene duplications, chromosome duplications, inversions. Every type of mutation you can imagine we've observed, and we've seen new genes form in the lab. Take nylonase, for example. We found, I think it was a type of bacteria, that there was a gene duplication. There was a section of DNA which duplicated, and then there was a frame shift where a C base pair was inserted, which then shifted the whole pattern along one, and it completely changed what the codons represented, and spontaneously formed a brand new gene which enabled it to digest nylon. And that's happened in the wild as well. And that gene couldn't have existed for more than 40 years. So we have the mechanism there. Whether or not we know how it started is completely irrelevant. Take the water cycle, for example. Your argument is basically the same as saying the water cycle is completely invalid because someone can't explain how the first water molecule was formed. And it's like, yeah, I know we now know how the first water molecule was formed, but it would be like arguing that point, 200 years ago. Right, so your next comment then is, what do you mean proof? You'd sidestep my first comment about abiogenesis. I didn't sidestep it at all. I explained that abiogenesis is a completely separate theory. I mean, why can't I, you accept what you would call microevolution. Why is that different? Where is the line drawn? Creationists usually say that it's becoming a new species, but we have observed speciation. So yeah, we have no explanation for why microevolution is possible by your logic. Now, your argument there is completely invalid. Right, so because without a process for getting to evolution, all of this is meaningless. No, it's not. We have explanations. We haven't verified them yet. But when it comes to evolution, we know for a fact that it is true now. How many times do I have to explain this? Let's see. And if I could, if I chose to take the time, refute every one of your so-called proofs of evolution, but that is not the issue. The issue is your unbelief. Right. So then we get to exactly what your motive is here. Okay, disprove my theories. Anyone disprove what I've got to say. Anybody. But no one has yet. And there's 40% of Americans are, creationists, believe the Earth is under 10,000 years old. Not one of them has been able to disprove anything that I've said. So yeah, you say that the issue is my unbelief. How dare you tell me that I have to believe in a God? And I presume you're on about your God in particular. Why should I have to believe it? Until there's actually been any proof, there's no reason for anybody to believe anything. That would be like me going to you, you have to wear this tinfoil hat or the aliens are going to steal your memories. Without me coming up with some really solid proof there, you've got no reason to believe me whatsoever. And yeah, it seems, it's nothing to do with evolution why you're arguing this. You just want me to believe in God. No, if you want me to believe in God, prove that God exists. And, the chances are that you're not going to be able to do that by trying to disprove evolution. If God exists, there should be plenty of ways to prove that's the case, but none of them have been shown to be valid so far. Right, there's more than enough evidence for God in nature if anyone would take the time to look. Okay, where? Prove it. I mean, I've heard every creationist argument going, it seems, and not one of them has been able to show that God exists. I mean, if a God exists, it should be really, really easy to prove that's the case. You should be able to, for example, prove that miracles happen. You should be able to, you should be able to disprove evolution. You should be able to prove that a flood happened at some point. Anything. But there is nothing. No argument I've heard as of yet has proven the existence of a God. And if a God exists, it should seem really easy. So, okay. So, few points then. Firstly, answer the other 5 questions I asked. And secondly, if you think that evidence of God's all around you, prove it.